Hello and welcome back to the Hypershade Studios YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at setting up displacement maps with Arnold as our renderer in the Maya Hypershade Editor. This is going to be building off of what we did last week in the video where we took a brief look at the Hypershade Editor. So if you're not sure what displacement is, or if you've never used it before, it's one of those features in 3D that can kind of completely transform the look of your models. Instead of just fake detail with normal or bump maps like we went over last lesson, or last video, displacement actually changes the surface geometry at the render time, creating real depth and real changes to the model. It's perfect for things like rocks and terrain, and what makes it really, really cool is that you can start with actually a really simple model and just let displacement do most of the heavy lifting, adding all that complexity automatically just through a texture map. So today we're going to be looking at using displacement to create a mountain just from a simple plane. So let's go ahead and just create a plane. We could leave it at that scale. I like to scale it up a little bit. It's not too important. And this is nearly done. The quickest modeling tutorial ever. But while displacement creates more detail just from an image texture or like procedural noise potentially, we do need to have a adequate amount of mesh density in our models before we do anything. Otherwise it won't have enough to play with. So I'm going to go ahead and increase the divisions on this. It's 10 at the moment. I'm going to up this to something like maybe 48 by 48 just to begin with. We might have to increase this later, but that's a good start. We also do need some basic UVs. We're not going to be using triplanar projection or anything like that for displacement to work. Fortunately, this is just flat, and planes already come with UVs when you create them in Maya, so this will work fine for us. But if you have a more complex model, just take that into account that the UVs are going to be important when using displacement. One last bit of setup, we'll just quickly create a light from the rendering tab. I'm just going to create a directional light like this to kind of act as a sun, and we'll just pop that there and leave that for now. Okay, so let's get everything connected up. Let's select our plane, hold down right click, and we're going to assign a new material. We're going to go to Arnold and we're going to use an open PBR surface again, like usual. And let's open up our Hypershade Editor just by clicking this little blue ball at the top again. We're going to select our new shader from the materials list up here, and we're just going to press this button to graph this so we can see everything. So you remember last time, if you watched last week's video, we went over what all these different connections are. So we're going to be connecting up something to this little blue node on the side here instead today. You can see it as a displacement shader input. So we're going to press tab and we're going to type in displacement shader. And it's going to create something like this. You can delete this little blue node. We don't need it since we already have one attached to our main open PBR surface. We're going to take the displacement out from this little green dot, and we're just going to plug that into the displacement shader like that. Okay, on its own, this isn't actually going to do anything. If you remember from last week, a normal map, or an AI normal map, is quite similar, right? It's like a in-between node that tells our shader what exactly we want this to do. So this is just a displacement on its own. We need to plug in an image texture for this. So we're going to press tab again, and we're going to go to File. Okay, and we're going to take the out color red, kind of like how we did with the roughness from last video. That's because we just need, we don't need color information necessarily. We just need 0 and 1, black and white, or, you know, just different shades of red in this case will work as well. And we're going to plug that into the displacement. So before we can go ahead and render this, we actually need to get a displacement map. So like I said, we're going to be doing a mountain, and there are a plethora of free examples of displacement maps that you can get online. Ambient CG and Polyhaven, like I've mentioned in previous videos, are a great source for these. They'll be available with the majority of PBR textures you can get on there. For today, like I said, we're going to be doing a mountain, and this guy here, ARC, I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce his name on Twitter, or X here, has generously given out 50 free ones, not for commercial use most likely, to download. You can see here from the pictures the kind of effects that we're going to be able to get just from an image texture, which is insane, right? So we're going to go to the mega link, and there's a huge plethora of available ones. I'm just going to use variant 1, so I'm just going to tick that box and then download that as it is. Okay. Okay, so once you've downloaded that, just go ahead and store that somewhere that makes sense in your Maya directory. I've gone ahead and just placed it here. I'm just going to copy that file path so I know where that is. And in our file node in the Hypershade Editor, I'm going to click this little file icon, just paste in my file path, and I'm going to open this. So this might not look like much to begin with, right? And similarly to roughness maps, you can see here it's just kind of a mix of black and white, or black and gray, really. So essentially what this means is the white areas are going to be parts which are raised up from the surface. Black areas are going to be parts which are pushed down, decreased in depth from the surface. Last thing that we have to change is the color space needs to be set to raw. So we're going to go to utility and then raw, like we did with the roughness maps and normal maps last time. But we also need alpha is luminance turned on. I also just like to tick this little box here because if you don't tick this, Maya's going to throw out a warning saying that you set the color space to raw. It's kind of silly. So I just tick that as well. It's up to you. So now that's connected, let's go ahead and render. So I'm going to go up to render up here and then just press on Arnold. And you can see, just like that, we now have a mountain coming out of our plane. Isn't that insane? Like if you select the model, you can see it's still just a grid, but when we're rendering here, we've got a mountain coming out of it. And it's like, how does that work? You know, we didn't have to model any of this. Well, that's the convenience of displacement maps. And as you can see, they're incredibly easy to set up. It really doesn't take much time at all. Just an image texture, and a lot of them are free. You could even just use a noise texture if you wanted to. There's a few different things we can tweak here with the displacement map, though, that I'll go over. Otherwise, it's going to be a really short video. Let me just select the displacement shader. Okay, and I'm just going to minimize this, and we'll have it come up in the attribute editor on the right here. And there's a few different settings if I just open up the Arnold tab. So the bounds padding, some of this might sound confusing and not make sense exactly what it is, but I'll just briefly explain. The bounce padding, generally this is just to expand the area around your object that Arnold can use or look for to displace your model. Increasing this could potentially prevent parts of the displaced mesh from being cut off or clipped during the rendering, but you most likely won't have to change this most of the time. As you can see here, nothing's actually getting clipped off the top. A value of 0 is generally okay, but if parts of your mesh are getting clipped off, just increase this value. I think generally it's better to start small and work your way up before going to massive values, especially with displacement, because it can be quite tricky and also fairly resource intensive depending on how much displacement you're using. Okay. Scalar 0 value. This essentially just tells Maya which gray color in your displacement map. You remember earlier when we were looking at the map and seeing the gray to white to black colors, which gray area of the map means no change to the surface. So at 0%, that generally means 50% gray is going to be where nothing changes. Lighter areas will push the surface out more, as I said, and then darker areas push it in. Lastly, there's just this tick button here called auto bump, and bump, like we mentioned in the previous video, is kind of like normal. Essentially, this just allows you to add fine detail from your displacement image texture as a bump effect rather than actually displacing the model. This is like your normal, and it is bundled into the displacement shader. So even if your displacement is kind of low poly, this can help preserve some detail without having heavy geometry. So if I was to untick this, you can see here the actual displacement is quite simple. But if we turn on auto bump, we're then getting all those really, really nice ridges. So it kind of depends on what level of detail you need out of this. If you aren't going to see this from too up close, then just leaving on auto bump could be great. If you do need a lot more detail, for example, maybe this was much closer up, you're going for a very, very realistic shot, then we would have to subdivide this even more. We could either just subdivide this in the viewport just by holding our right click, shift and right click, and then going to smooth, giving it more topology to work with. You can see now the model is a little bit more detailed and defined. We're getting some of those ridges in there, but it's still not quite crisp. So you can see how the level of topology really does affect how crisp your displacement is going to be. If you really, really do need to crank this up, be warned, it is going to slow down the render times quite a lot, both how long it takes for the render to start and actually render. You can see right now I'm at 4 seconds per frame just in the viewport here. So if you're going to have to subdivide this, I would not just go to smooth. I would do this at render time. What you can do is select the shape node of your model. So we've got p-plane shape 1 here. If you've renamed your model, like if I was to rename this just to like, I don't know, dog, you can see there it says dog shape, right? Let's name that back to plane. If you go to Arnold, go to subdivision, and then under type here, go to cat Clark, not linear, always cat Clark, and then change the iterations to, let's just start with 3 for the time being. So what this means is at render time, it's going to subdivide this mesh by 3 times, but it's going to preserve the topology, as you can see here in our viewport. Generally, if you're going to be subdividing, this is the better way to do it. Otherwise, your scenes get quite heavy. We could push this up to 5. You can see here now, the rendering is taking a decent bit longer. But now we have a lot more detail in there. It looks a lot more crisp than when we had the auto bump turned on. So we can just have that turned off in this case now. Right. So it's all about kind of just determining what your needs are here. But yeah, so that's how you set up displacement. You can see it's super duper simple and easy to set up. Thank you very much for watching. Again, let me know if you have any questions. I'll be making more videos on the Hypershade Editor and how to set things up. This was a suggestion video as well, so if you have any more suggestions on what to look at, anything you're struggling with or unsure about or just curious about, please do let me know. Ask any question at all. I'll be happy to answer it. Yeah, like I said, thank you very much for watching. Yeah, like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.